But John doesn't back down. He says, I know we've got the right guy because verse 15, John the Baptist testifies concerning him. I mean, you guys all remember John down at the river, baptizing people every day. He kept telling us that someone was coming. He said, keep your eyes open. So if you guys are doubting what I'm saying, you need to know that when this guy Jesus showed up, John the Baptist pointed at him and he said, there he is. There's the guy I've been telling you is going to show up. So we do have the right guy because John testifies concerning him. He cried out saying, this was he of whom I said, he who comes after me has surpassed me because he was before me. Now, that's a little confusing, but here's what John was saying. John was saying, I'm here today, but you need to understand I was born into this world. But the one who is coming after me has been here from the beginning. Therefore, he has surpassed me because he has always been. So John, the writer of this gospel, was saying, look, we've got the right guy. This is the one that even John the Baptist said, there he is. He's the one I've been telling you about. And then listen to what John the writer says next. Verse 16. And this is unbelievable. He says, from the fullness of his grace, we have all received one blessing after another. From the fullness of his grace, we have all received one blessing after another. Here is the literal Greek translation. From his fullness, in other words, here's what came out of Jesus. Here's what emitted from Jesus. This is what it was like to be around him. From his fullness came grace upon grace. John is saying just when we thought we were beginning to understand grace, there it was again. Just when we thought that maybe Jesus had maxed out on grace, there it was again. I'm telling you, with Jesus, every time we turned around, it just completely surprised us because it was grace upon grace upon grace upon grace, just like the ocean flowing to the shore, the waves, 24/7, grace upon grace. And John says, hey, this just took us completely by surprise. This is not what we were expecting from the God of the Old Testament, who is this touch me and you die God. This is the opposite of what we were expecting, because it was grace upon grace upon grace. I mean, hey, we used to all think that it was spiritual to hate tax collectors. But you know what Jesus did? He recruited one, Matthew the tax collector. And then there was this other guy named Zacchaeus. We all hated him. But eventually we found ourselves at his house having a party. You know, it was just unbelievable. One day they come and throw this lady down in front of us. And we all knew who she was. You know, we wouldn't admit it, but we knew who she was. And she had been caught in the very act of adultery. And we're thinking, okay, wow, we know what the law says that we should do. But the next thing we know, Jesus makes some comment, and the crowd disperses, and Jesus says to her, don't do that anymore. You are guilty, but you're forgiven. Have a nice day. I'm telling you, every time we turned around, it seemed like Jesus broke the rules, and it just caught us by surprise. You know, we're thinking justice and truth, and we're thinking judgment and truth, and we're thinking God's going to get you in truth. But every time we turned around, it wasn't that at all. It was grace upon grace upon grace upon grace upon grace. One day, Jesus even said, hey guys, you need to pray for your enemies. And we're like, Jesus, why would we pray for our enemies? And he said, because that's what grace does. And then even when Jesus was dying on the cross, grace just flowed out of him, because I was standing there with his mother, and Jesus turns to this criminal next to him, and he says, today you will be with me in paradise. And I remember just shaking my head and saying, there it is again. Grace upon grace upon grace. So as I begin this gospel, I want you to know this isn't the God you thought you knew. This isn't the God that you expected. This was God in a body, and I know we got the right one because John the Baptist said he was the right one, but he was nothing like we expected. From the fullness of his grace, we have all received one blessing after another. And then to further prove his point, John goes back to something that they all understood. He wanted to draw a little contrast. And so he says to them in verse 17, "For the law was given through Moses." And everybody's going, "Okay, thank you, John. We understand the law. It's black and white." But then look at what he says next. The grace, there it is again, the missing ingredient. Grace and truth came through, or literally were realized through, Jesus Christ. John said, hey, we all understand that the law says we get what we deserve, but while Jesus certainly upheld the law, he went beyond the law because he took grace and truth and he married them. In our minds, we always thought that grace and truth would be in conflict because truth is about getting what we deserve, but grace is about getting what we don't deserve. But somehow, Jesus brought the two together. He never dumbed down the law or shortchanged truth. In fact, he even raised the standard higher, and he got us all to admit that we were lawbreakers and we could never live up to God's standard. But then here's what he did that was so strange. Once we realized and admitted that we were all sinners and had fallen short of God's glory, what was so amazing is Jesus didn't say, whoa, now you're in trouble. He offered us the exact opposite of what we deserved. Because he said, it's true, you're unworthy, but I'm going to make you worthy. It's true, you have no standing with God, so I'm going to give you a standing with God. It's true that you owe more than you could possibly pay, so I'm going to pay it for you. John says, man, I just can hardly believe this. You know, through Moses, we found the law, and that was pretty good. But through Jesus, we found grace and truth. And woo! You know, it is so much better. And as guilty as we knew we were, he gave us exactly what we did not deserve. Then here's the best part of it all. And don't miss this. This might radically change your life. I hope it does. I hope it radically changes your Christmas season. Verse 18, John says, no one has ever seen God, but God, the one and only, who is at the Father's side, has made him known. This verse is really incredible. John is saying, no one has ever seen God. And we're saying, okay, John, we get that. We agree with you. But then John says, except for Jesus. Because the phrase, God, the one and only, is a phrase that John used to describe Jesus. So a simpler way to put this verse is no one has ever seen God except for Jesus, and he is at the Father's right hand even now as we speak.